SITREP World Briefing for June 3, 2026. Iran launched missiles toward Kuwait and then struck Kuwait International Airport in Kuwait City with drones, forcing the suspension of commercial flights and causing heavy damage to the airport complex. Kuwaiti authorities said at least one person was killed and several others were wounded in the attack, which hit a key civilian aviation hub on the western shore of the Persian Gulf. The assault came after a ceasefire between Washington and Tehran came under renewed strain overnight, expanding the fallout from the U.S.-Iran confrontation to another Gulf state. U.S. military officials said American forces intercepted Iranian missile and drone attacks in the region, while separate reporting on the same exchange of fire said missiles launched toward Kuwait and Bahrain either broke apart or were intercepted before reaching their targets. The drone strike on Kuwait's airport showed that Tehran could still inflict direct damage on critical civilian infrastructure in a country that hosts U.S. forces and sits close to Iraq, Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important shipping choke points. Kenyan police shot and killed 2 protesters in central Kenya during demonstrations against a planned U.S.-backed Ebola quarantine center. The deaths occurred as residents protested the proposal to establish a facility for U.S. nationals, with police using live fire to disperse crowds opposing the project. The confrontation in central Kenya highlighted concerns over health infrastructure when associated with outside powers and quarantine measures. Kenya has often positioned itself as a regional logistics and medical hub for East Africa, so decisions about isolation facilities can carry national implications. The planned center's U.S. backing became a focal point for protesters, and the killing of 2 people is likely to intensify scrutiny of both the project and the conduct of Kenyan police. The Trump administration on Tuesday abandoned its proposed €1.8 billion, $1.5 billion anti-weaponization fund after sustained opposition from Republican lawmakers in Washington. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said the administration was dropping the program, which had been presented as a way to compensate people who said they had been harmed by politically motivated investigations. The reversal underscored how quickly an initiative framed around claims of political persecution became a liability inside a Republican-led Washington. Trump has made allegations of partisan law enforcement a central theme of his political message. But the fund's collapse showed that even allies in Congress were unwilling to endorse a large federal compensation program tied to that argument, especially when the administration could not keep its own coalition aligned behind it. The decision also highlighted the limits of executive ambition when a proposal collides with fiscal and political objections from the president's base on Capitol Hill. Blanche's announcement effectively closed off what had become a high-profile intra-party dispute, and it shifted the administration away from one of its domestic governance plans of the year. Israel and Lebanon opened a new round of direct U.S.-mediated talks in Washington on Tuesday after Israeli strikes intensified pressure along the Lebanese front. The ambassadors of Israel and Lebanon began the fresh round after President Donald Trump said he had secured commitments from both sides to de-escalate, giving Washington a narrow diplomatic opening to try to contain a confrontation that had again moved from military action to the negotiating table. The talks reflected the Trump administration's effort to keep fighting between Israel and Lebanon from widening into a broader regional crisis. For Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has faced pressure over military escalation and its regional consequences, while Lebanon remains vulnerable to any further cross-border campaign because fighting on its southern frontier can quickly draw in larger armed actors. Washington has become the central venue for this latest de-escalation push because the United States is one of the few actors able to pressure Israel directly while also brokering messages with Lebanon's leadership. By convening another round after the latest strikes, the White House signaled that it wants to prevent military moves on the Lebanon front from undermining wider Middle East diplomacy. Microsoft announced its new Majorana 2 quantum chip in the United States on June 2nd, saying the device is 1,000 times more reliable than its predecessor and presenting the advance as a significant step toward practical quantum computing. The company also said it expects to build a quantum computer capable of solving commercially useful problems by the end of the decade, linking the new chip directly to that timetable. The announcement matters because reliability has been one of the central obstacles in quantum hardware, where fragile quantum states are easily disrupted and error rates can overwhelm any theoretical speed advantage. The Majorana 2 announcement places Microsoft in the contest among large technology companies and research groups to turn years of laboratory work into usable machines. Quantum computers are designed for highly specialized tasks rather than ordinary office software. But supporters argue that if companies can reduce errors enough, they could eventually tackle valuable problems in areas such as materials science, chemistry, logistics, and cryptography. By emphasizing a 1,000-fold reliability improvement and a target of commercially useful systems before 2030, Microsoft used the United States launch to signal that it believes its approach is moving from experimental promise toward engineering scale. The European Union approved a broad migration overhaul in Brussels, Belgium, on Tuesday, backing measures designed to increase deportations and let member states set up detention or return hub arrangements outside the bloc. The agreement marks another shift by EU governments toward faster removals of rejected asylum seekers, after years of political deadlock over how to manage irregular arrivals across the Mediterranean and the Balkans. The new framework would give governments wider legal and political cover to pursue deportation deals with non-EU countries and to process or hold some rejected applicants in facilities beyond the Union's borders. Brussels has faced steady pressure from capitals arguing that the bloc's external borders, especially routes through the central Mediterranean and southeastern Europe, require tougher enforcement tools. And the latest agreement shows that position has gained broader support inside EU institutions. The decision also carries wider political weight for the EU because migration has become a defining issue in elections across the bloc, with mainstream parties and right-leaning governments demanding more visible control over borders, asylum procedures, and removals. The Balkans remain central to that debate, both as a transit corridor for migrants and as a region where the EU is trying to deepen strategic influence through enlargement policy. By pairing tougher migration rules with external partnerships, EU leaders are signaling that border management and geopolitical strategy are now closely linked. Sources and the full written briefing are available at sitrepbrief.com.